Okay, tonight I'm going to show you how I set up my home lab here for a little bit of quick benchmark testing. This is not the most elaborate rig. I'm basically just running these 3 downloads that anyone can get for free and put this hardware together. There it is, a Samsung 950 Pro specifically is what I'm testing tonight. And here's the software and the config that I used and all the download links, so you should be able to repeat my results here. And here's what I'm really looking for at the moment, and that is the UEFI directions. So, before I shut down though, I'll go ahead and make sure my performance is set correctly in the physical system here. Power. And choose a power plan, and that'll show us that we're in high performance already. All right, so that's good. Now, also for auto start, minimal stuff on, right? Just the Windows stuff. And I even have quiet hours set, so there's no pop-ups. Now, here's a cool thing. We've got iKVM on a Supermicro super server here. So I can simply show you everything in the BIOS. So we're going to go ahead and follow these directions, setting up this machine in front of you so you can see what I went through to do the benchmarks that I'll be publishing soon down here. Okay. So trying to be completely transparent and, more important, be fun to kind of have someone else be able to follow along with exactly those steps. So this video should hopefully help people do that. I'll point out on the hardware side, here's the BIOS I'm at, 1.0B and IPMI 0214. And down at the bottom I have a whole bunch of articles and references. And one of them is about how I updated the BIOS. Right there, under my mouse. All right, over here I need to hit the delete key to get into setup. There I am, 10B. And a full complement of 128 gig of RAM, which is rather nice. All right. I left arrow to save and exit. And right away I'm going to say restore optimize defaults. And there we go. Now we have a factory default machine. Next piece. Oh, just add a step here. Okay, just fixed a step or two. All right, so over here, I'm just going to arrow our way around. So we're on the main page. I'm going to hit right arrow. And we've already finished step 1. Now I'm going to step 2. And that's right in here in boot feature. And numlock drives me a little bit nuts, so I'm going to turn that off. Every time you type, you get the weird characters and whatnot when you're doing a password. Just very frustrating. That has nothing to do with benchmarking. That's just what I do, kind of as a best practices setup thing in my BIOS. Power button. I'd rather push and hold it 4 seconds to deliberately shut down power. And then finally, if I have a power outage in my house, I want to control when it goes back on. So in my case, I want stay off. Again, those are just usability things. Now I can hit escape on the screen. Let's get to the important stuff, and that is step 5. Step 5 over here. Just going to follow along. Under CPU configuration. If I up arrow, it jumps right to where I want to go. It's a submenu. Advanced Power Management Configuration. CPU C state control. You know what, I'm going to leave my mouse over here. It'll kind of give me a visual bookmark of where I am. And now CPU C state disable. Okay. Next one. Hit escape. And then go to CPU advanced PM tuning. Energy performance bias. And energy performance tuning disable. So now the next thing lights up and I can actually change it to performance. Okay, we're moving on to 8, which requires hitting escape and going into power, CTL, and energy efficient turbo disable. Okay, ready to escape. Oops, got my mouse focused in the wrong place. There we go. So we're on step 9, right there. And that has me going all the way to the top menu. Head down to PCIe. And this legacy here needs to turn to EFI. Same deal with this one, goes to EFI. So 9 and 10 are done. 11, this one's weird. VGA onboard video option ROM needs to go to EFI. If you don't do that, one of the later steps won't work. This next step, step 12 in fact. So hit escape, head over to security, down arrow, CSM support. Interesting. Disabled. Yeah, that's weird. So it seems like everything went to factory defaults except for this. So when this machine has BIOS 1.0b and you reboot after setting factory defaults for all your settings, CSM support is enabled, I believe. Anyhow, I documented that for this we want to disable it. And next, right arrow to boot, change it to UEFI. And item 14, that's about the fan speed. All right. So I do want to save and exit. Save changes and exit. Say yes. And now it's restarting. Now that takes a good 45 to 50 seconds for power and self-test to finish. And then Windows 10 will boot very quickly at that point. And then I'm able to go ahead with the performance testing. So that's basically it for the setup. As far as the rest of it, well, I explained that right here. I'm just launching each of the benchmarks, running them 3 times with at least 30 seconds between them, and I'm leaving all 3 at the factory defaults to make it super easy for you to see if you can get similar results. Okay, now we're booted. I'll give you a nice clean full screen now. And what I wanted to show you is the effect of what we just did. What we just did was told the CPU to not go into its 0.78 gigahertz mode when idle. So here we have a machine that's doing nothing, 0% CPU, and the gigahertz is always kind of high. That means you're burning more watts. So yeah, good for benchmarking, not so great for the rest of, operating the machine. So for me personally, since the benefits of all this tuning I just did are only like maybe 10-15% for benchmark scores, for normal operations, I'm going to go back to factory default pretty much and then just follow along with my Windows 10 deployment guide. Actually, I think I have that here. So right here, detailed assembly and configuration instructions. These are the BIOS settings and the configuration that I'd actually recommend for day-to-day use right here. All explained. Okay, so that's it. I am ready to run the benchmarks and making sure nothing else is running. Now, when you first boot Windows or Windows Update, stuff could happen, right? So you don't necessarily want to do this right after you boot. But looks like we're pretty much settled down here, and I'm going to throw away this first run anyway on video. And I've got all 3 utilities I'm going to use all lined up in a row here. First one will be ATTO Dispatch. And I just fire that up and kind of walk away until it's done and then record the result and move on. 3 times for each of these 3, so it'll be 9 tests with a 30-second cool-off period between. Yes. Fan speed. There's another step to do. So what we need to do is go into configuration, fan mode, and make sure for our benchmark, actually I'm normally on standard speed. My previous video talks about throttling. We don't want throttling to kick on the Samsung 950 while benchmarking. So the last piece would be to set your fan to full speed, and that's done through the IPMI web interface. That's it. It says current fan mode is full. Close that up. Now there's no background apps, and the only thing that's running is ATTO dispatch. And plenty of time has elapsed. So as I mentioned, that first one was done a little too soon after boot. These next 3 runs I'm going to keep. CPU is doing nothing. So here we go. All right, it's finishing up. Now remember I said I have 30 seconds at least. I want to wait between runs. I just want to make sure, again, throttling doesn't bite. But I've tested this a lot, and I ran it over and over. As long as the fan speed's on high, it keeps up and has no trouble keeping things cool for full speed on the benchmarks. They run Samsung Magician, by the way. It will show us, before all this kind of abuse I'm about to do, 3 benchmarks times 3 each. That's 9 tests. I'm at 3.5 terabytes written. Just keep in mind, 400 terabytes is the warranty, so benchmarking is kind of hard on SSDs. Given what I just spent on this, got to keep an eye on that and just be aware of that. You would not want to leave something running all night long, like iometer or iometer, whatever you want to call it, or disk burn-in tests. Just be careful. That stuff's meant for spinning drives, not an SSD. Okay. So we've had some time go by, and I'm ready to kick off the second test. And that's basically it. So, hopefully you found this video helpful. Thank you for watching and for visiting tinkertry.com.